So Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery, was written and directed by Rian Johnson and once again features Daniel Craig as Benoit Blanc, as well as a bunch of new faces this time, including Josh Brolin, Josh O'Connor, Glenn Close, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, Mila Kunis, Thomas Hayden Church, Andrew Scott, Kaylee Spaney, a whole bunch of people appear in this movie. And in this movie, Benoit Blanc is called to assist in a case involving a priest who was murdered on the site, and we have a new Knives Out movie. So this was a movie that I was looking forward to. I was looking forward to this movie so much that I wound up going to a theater with my dad about an hour and a half out of our way just to see this movie because I wanted to see this movie on a big screen. And it really makes me mad that Netflix has decided that they're not going to show this movie in any big theater really and only going to show it in like small theaters. But if that's any reason to go support independent theaters, sure. And also, if that's a reason to go see a movie like Knives Out, which would be on Netflix and such, that helps a lot. But I was still looking forward to this movie because I do really enjoy the Knives Out movie. Knives Out 1 I thought was okay the first time I saw it, but I have rewatched it again multiple times since then, and I'm really glad and every time I watch it, I'm really glad that I watch it every time because there's a lot of nuances in that movie where it's like, okay, I didn't see that the first time. Whereas Glass Onion, I think I definitely overhyped it the first time I saw it, but I still enjoy the movie for the most part. But I think the main difference between Knives Out and Glass Onion is that Knives Out is a little more subtle than Glass Onion is, so I'm definitely noticed that upon another viewing of that movie. So I was definitely curious to see what this movie is going to be like. I heard a lot of really good things about it, as you know, with Knives Out and Glass Onion and such. And if you're a fan of these movies, I think you're going to enjoy this movie as much as you enjoy the other two. This movie is very good. It has some great performances, a very unique mystery. So let's go into what I do like about this movie. Daniel Craig, once again, as Benoit Blanc. He's pretty fun. As far as the supporting cast goes, a lot of the new actors in this movie I think are really good. Josh Brolin as this fire and brimstone preacher, I thought he was really good and very intimidating at times. Josh O'Connor steals the entire movie. He's kind of the main focus in this movie, kind of like how Ana de Armas was the focus in the first Knives Out, and Janelle Monáe was the focus in Glass Onion. Here, he's the main focus, and he carries this movie completely, and he's really good in this movie. There are several scenes where it's like, he's, yeah, he's definitely the scene stealer this entire movie. Other actors who I think do an alright job, Glenn Close. It's always great to see Glenn Close in a movie. Also, Jeffrey Wright is in this movie, which I didn't know about until like the week it came out and such. But I was very surprised by him, and also because I'm surprised they didn't even mention him because he's really good in this movie. He's also really funny in his brief role too. I will say that the other things I really like about this movie is that this movie kind of goes back to the subtlety of the first movie, whereas like I look back at that movie, it's like I kind of see some nuances in that first movie where it's like, oh, maybe I didn't catch that the first time. And I feel like this is going to be one of those movies where it's like, I'm going to, if I watch this movie again, which I likely will, I will definitely see some things that maybe I didn't notice the first time. There are definitely some moments in this movie where it's like they replay some things where it's like you watch the first time, it's like, okay, I get what they're going for, but then they twist it when you find out everything that's going on. It's like, this whole scene kind of feels different now, and I really like that about the whole Knives Out movies. It's like they kind of play it one way, but then you kind of see it another way eventually. Also, I do think this movie is very unpredictable. There were so many times where I was watching this movie and I was kind of thinking, okay, here's what I think the whole situation is like. And then there are times where it's like, oh no, it's not like that at all. But it's like, okay, it kind of just kept me guessing. Again, I say this with a lot of movies that are unpredictable. Isn't it great to go into a movie and not know what you're actually seeing sometimes? It can be very, very good to know that. Or in this case, not to know that. Also, I will say this movie is very funny. I would say it's actually funnier than the first two movies. There are a lot of lines of dialogue that are just absolutely hysterical. I really wanted to laugh out loud in the theater and such and just kind of just lose it because there were so many great lines in this movie. It was just hilarious to watch. Also, I will say that this movie is probably the most gorgeously shot of all three Knives Out movie. The first Knives Out was pretty cool, especially in the mansion and such, but this one, I definitely feel like with this one, Rian Johnson does a lot of interesting things with lighting. There's one scene where Benoit Blanc is talking about his views of religion, and it's like it kind of gets a little grayer and such because his views are not really all that positive. Whereas Josh O'Connor tries to see it a little bit more positively, and you can see the lighting kind of increase with his talk and such. Which kind of brings me to another interesting thing about this movie that I thought was really interesting is that how they talk about religion in this movie. Now, I kind of said this in Glass Onion, but it's clear that Rian Johnson is kind of using these movies to kind of get his thoughts out about various subject matters and kind of get his anger and kind of push some things on display. Like the first Knives Out dealt with racism. This one, Glass Onion, dealt with, billionaires. This one definitely deals with religion, but I think with this one, it's actually kind of shows both positive and negative. While clearly Rian Johnson does have some views that are negative, it definitely shows that he has some positive aspects. It kind of shows that, religion can be a powerful tool, and, though it can be used to, harm people, to hurt people, and kind of distort a lot of people's thoughts and ways and such. Whereas there are some aspects where it's like it can be helpful. There's like one scene where Josh O'Connor is in the middle of the investigation and such, and he is on the phone with someone, but this person about halfway through the conversation mentions that they're kind of going through something. It's like, okay, that's actually kind of interesting. I actually feel like this movie could have easily just gone the route and said, religion is terrible and such, but it kind of shows that, there are good and bad sides to it. But let's talk about some things that I don't like about this movie. First off, even though I like seeing Daniel Craig once again as Benoit Blanc, he kind of takes a back seat to this movie. I will say he appears at the very beginning, and then he doesn't appear for like what feels like an hour, actually. And it's kind of weird because like he's the main character of this movie, and I kind of felt like he almost takes a back seat to Josh O'Connor's character at times. Now, Josh O'Connor carries the movie. I have no problem with him, but it kind of just comes off as like kind of surprising. It was a little disappointing, but then again, I know that he's kind of, even though he's the main character, he kind of still is the second banana in the movie, because the first movie was about Ana de Armas, second one Janelle Monáe, this one Josh O'Connor. So it does kind of make sense, but I feel like I still felt his presence in the first two Knives Out movies as opposed to this one. Even my dad at one point was like, wasn't Daniel Craig in this movie? And I had to mention, yes, he is. He was at the beginning. Also, even though there are some good performances from some of the cast members, there are some cast members who I feel like are just kind of wasted. Like Kerry Washington, I like her, but her character, very disappointing. Thomas Hayden Church, I felt his character was disappointing. Jeremy Renner, it's kind of weird because Jeremy Renner is mentioned by name in Glass Onion, and he appears in this movie as a completely different character, so I'm like, no one's going to mention that at all? It's kind of odd. They don't really have too many quirks. They don't really have too much that really stands out about them. The only person I would say who has anything to stand out is Daryl McCormick, who has like, he kind of, records everything, and it does come back into the movie, but other than that, I felt like most of the characters didn't really do much for me. And I do think that there are a few pacing issues. This movie is 2 hours and 24 minutes long. It's a pretty long movie. And there are definitely times where it's like, okay, I felt like they could wrap it up here, and I feel like it would just be fine. It would be satisfactory. But no, they kind of drag it out a little bit too much. There are really good scenes in this movie, too. Like, again, I mentioned the scene where Benoit Blanc and Josh O'Connor, they're kind of talking about their views on faith and such. There's another scene where Josh Brolin is kind of showing, like, some of the things that he does in his church that are very horrible and very bizarre and such, and like kind of like giving his sermons where he's like, oh, I'm just going to piss people off in my sermon. It's like, okay, that's very interesting. It's very well done. It is very well edited. And again, I will say this, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and I'm glad that I got to see this in a movie theater. And I wish Netflix would put some of these movies out in movie theaters first, and not just in small theaters or just a select amount of cities and such. Actually show the movies in theaters. So okay, not everything. Maybe movies like Wake Up Dead Man, yes. Movies like Frankenstein, yes. But I will say, Wake Up Dead Man, I enjoyed it. The acting is pretty good for the most part. I do like Josh O'Connor's character, especially. He kind of stole the entire movie for me. I do like the subtle nature of this movie compared to something like Glass Onion. I do think it's very unpredictable. It can be very funny. The cinematography is great. The talks about religion are very fascinating. Even though I feel like Benoit Blanc kind of takes a back seat for the majority of the movie, and also the supporting cast is fine and there are pacing issues throughout it, I still would recommend this movie, especially if you enjoyed the first two Knives Out movies. I would say this movie definitely is unique and different enough that it stands out. Also, this kind of made me mad. It also kind of made me mad in the last movie in this franchise, but they mentioned a mystery where it's like, oh yeah, you were on this mystery and such. It's like, okay, but you could have mentioned either of the other two mysteries, but oh well. They do the same thing. I feel like they just do this in all the Knives Out movies where it's like they mention a case that he worked on that you never really see. Okay. So, but other than that, I would still recommend Wake Up Dead Man. I will give it 3.5 out of 4 stars. See it. So, how would you rank the Knives Out movies, and who would you like to see in one of these movies? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.